Hi, my name's Emily. I'm with the Community Gardens program, and today I'm at the Providence Garden, and we are going to prep our first garden bed and plant carrots. So one of the first things that you want to do when you're prepping a garden bed is clear the area. Last year we had straw on this bed, just like this one right behind me, and so I raked off the straw. And I'm going to take a digging fork, which is this tool, and I'm going to work my way and fork this entire bed. And the reason that we do that is it's a great way to remove any weeds, especially if you have like quackgrass, which we have at the back side of that bed. And you can remove any other like plant matter that you have in there that may be left over from last fall. So we have some weeds here. We also have some old stems from last year. So I'll be removing all of those. Essentially, I want to clear the area so that it's clear for my seeds to go down and there's nothing going to obstruct my little seeds from germinating. So, and the other reason we fork, I forgot to mention, is to just aerate the soil and kind of loosen it up, make it nice, soft, and fluffy for our baby seeds and seedlings. And it also improves, it brings some air into the soil. It'll allow water to infiltrate through the soil easier. And it's just what we would recommend before planting in our growing climate. So use the digging fork like this, pop the soil, and work your way down the bed. What I'm standing on right now is actually a perennial clover, white clover, and this is what we use in our pathways. So I am leaving all of this clover here. It's a good nitrogen fixer. It'll help suppress weeds in the pathways. So I'm not going to be removing that. I'm going to remove any grass and try and get as much of the root as possible. You can leave rocks in here. If I would recommend like roughly golf ball size or smaller. You do want to not have any rocks exactly where you're going to plant your seeds, but it's okay to leave rocks in your garden bed as long as they're not in the way. All right, here's a bunch of quackgrass. So, loosening up that soil, pulling out the weeds, getting as much of the root as I can. And we're gonna do this through the entire bed. Alrighty, so we just forked our entire planting bed with a digging fork, as you can see. And now the next step is smoothing the planting bed to make a nice, even, smooth surface for our seeds. We want to make it even so that the water doesn't pool in one spot or run off and not soak into the soil. And we want to make it smooth so that our little tiny carrot seeds or any of our seeds don't have anything blocking their way to germinate into a seedling. So you could do that with a couple different tools. I have a hoe here. This is a hula hoe or stirrup hoe. This is good for kind of breaking up clumps. I also have a hard rake, which I like to use for my bed shaping. This is also good at breaking up clumps and just kind of shaping the bed. So like I said, you kind of want it, if you have extra soil like we do, we're going to kind of make it a little sloped on the edges and then flat on the top, just so it doesn't spill out into our pathways, and that it has more definition. So I'm going to, and then I also have manure. So we want to amend our soils annually. You can do it in the fall or the spring, but you want to do it before planting your next crops. If you're a community gardener with us, then you will do this in the spring because that's when we deliver manure. So I'm going to spread the manure out evenly. This is cow manure, but you could use chicken manure or llama or alpaca manure. or you could use compost from your compost system. So I'm going to spread it out evenly on the plot. It's a little wet and heavy. You don't need very much. This stuff's pretty concentrated and high in nitrogen and other nutrients for the plants. Hop around the other side. Once you fork your bed, try to avoid walking in the middle of it, because that'll just undo and compact all of your work that you just did. Okay. This is the other reason that I like the hard rake, because it'll help me spread out my manure as I go. You can kind of chop it in. This also breaks apart those clumps. Important to do this after you've removed all the weeds, because the weeds compete with your plants and will steal all of the nutrients you just added, and will compete for your plants for water and space, and they could even outshade them, worst case scenario. So I'll do this across the whole bed, breaking up clumps, smoothing it out. One trick I just want to show you is to make it extra smooth after you break out clumps. You can flip your tool and use the back side to make it really nice and smooth and level, just lightly across the top like this. Alrighty, so we just smoothed our bed out after adding manure. And I really wanted to make a really smooth surface because we're planting carrot seeds, which are tiny and pretty delicate. If you had a bigger seed, or like pea seed, or if you were planting starts like a tomato start or broccoli start, you could have it slightly less smooth and a little clumpier, because those are just bigger plants that won't be obstructed by bigger clumps. But these seeds are so small, you can get, they're so thin and delicate that you really, when you're planting carrots, want a really smooth bed. So the next thing is we're going to make rows, and it's important to read the directions or look up online the spacing for your plants. So for these carrots, it recommends sowing them a 1/2 inch deep, a 1/2 inch apart, in rows that are 16 to 24 inches apart. So one trick I want to show you is using your trowel, or if you have like a hori-hori, you can use this as a measuring tool. So this one actually even has inches on it. So most trowels are around 1 foot long, so you can use this to measure your bed. So I know I want 16 to 24 inches apart. So I'll start with one row, and I'll just do a little bit here, and then I'm going to measure 12, roughly half. So that looks like I can get 3 rows in here. And then, to make a nice straight line, take any tool, shovel, rake, this is the hoe, and flip it so you have the handle down, and you can draw a nice, pretty straight line through your bed. And this will help guide you when you're planting your seeds later. One more. Okay. So I got my rows. I can set this down. I like to take my gloves off when seeding, just so that I have more dexterity. And so the directions said a 1/2 inch deep. Another rule of thumb can be plant your seeds twice the depth, that's twice the size, the length of the seed. So since these are so small, they are going to be really shallow. So, and because they're so small, it can be challenging to space them, but just do your best, a 1/2 inch apart, which is pretty dense. We'll have to go in later once they germinate and thin them to 1 inch to a couple inches apart. And it's really important to thin these root crops, because if you don't, they won't grow to their mature size. And you know, that's the part we want to eat, is that delicious root. So I'll go down all the line, fill in all my rows with seeds, and then I'll slowly cover them and give them a nice little pat so that they have soil contact. Just like that. Alrighty, so we just planted our seeds, and now we're going to water. And this is so important that you water after planting seeds or planting any seedlings or transplants. And you can use a watering can or a spray nozzle on a hose, whatever you have. And the real trick to successful carrot growing is to keep the soil moist until these little seeds germinate. So carrots are only planted that first 1/2 inch, so they're really, really shallow. So that top 1/2 inch of soil dries out really easy when it's windy, kind of like today, or when it gets sunny and warm. So you may find yourself watering like twice a day, but definitely I would say once a day, unless it's very cool and overcast. But it's really important to keep that soil moist for carrot germination. And the tip that I would recommend is, after watering, is using row cover. So this is like a garden cloth you can find at hardware stores or garden stores. And it actually lets water through and some sunlight through, and we'll spread it out over our bed, and it'll help keep the soil moist. And it'll keep a little bit of warmth in there. Will actually help with germination too. So we'll spread this out, and you can see it the wind will take it away. So it's really important to stake it down with rocks. You can use stakes if you have them, but rocks work great, and we have plenty of rocks in Missoula. So you'll cover it just like that, and then when you come back to water, you can just water over the row cover. Like I said, the water goes through, so you could just water through. But you will want to double check, by peeping, to make sure the soil is moist and that the water did go through. And that's that. And then keep an eye out for your carrots germinating. And once they do, you see little green things, you can remove this or you can keep it on. Eventually, once your plants get a little bigger, I would take it off, because it doesn't let full sunlight through. It lets some sunlight through, but if you take it off, they'll get full sun and be pretty happy. Happy planting!